afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm just checking we are officially live, which I'm sure we are. Hope you're all having a great day so far. It is a little bit cold where I'm at in Melbourne. It's definitely sunny outside, but yeah, unfortunately, cold and sunny. But that's okay. It's beautiful and bright right now, and I'm excited to be live with you today. I'm excited to talk about today's topic. It's quite personal to me, a really important part of my life. Of course, it's the way I eat. So food is life, and so yeah, just a really important topic to me. So yeah, it looks like we are live, which is great, and I guess we can get into it. So today for Femgineer Chats, it's episode 8. And I wanted to talk to you about being vegan for the planet, and really not just going to focus on being vegan. It's really just about shifting towards a more plant-based diet or eating more plant-based in your lifestyle, and for the purpose of reducing your environmental impact through your food choices. I think a lot of people don't realize how important their food choices are on reducing environmental impact. There's so much that goes into the production process, into even the growth process, the production process, and then as well the ongoing sort of maintenance of the entire industry. So yeah, there's huge amounts of impact through water and energy and emissions that are being produced. So let's get into it, I guess. I first wanted to tell you a bit more about why I went vegan, which was around 3.5 years ago. And I guess prior to actually going vegan 3.5 years ago, I was sort of on a decade-long journey of trying to shift towards a more plant-based lifestyle. So since about 2008, I was having vegetarian weekdays, or hi Thangam, nice to have you on here. I had vegetarian weekdays, or 5 vegetarian meals a week, or a vegan for a month, or vegetarian for a month, whatever it was. I'm sort of shifting between various different styles of eating plant-based. Not so much styles, but more schedules around eating plant-based, because I just wasn't ready to go fully vegetarian or fully vegan even at the time. And then when I first tried veganism, it's about 2015, and I was vegan for about 4 months at the time, and I fell pregnant and with my now son, and I just didn't have the right connections or support system in place, knowing where to seek out guidance and who to talk to, how I could stay healthy as a pregnant mother to be. And I think at the time, because I wasn't truly choosing to be vegan, it was a bit of a superficial choice, sort of at a very surface level. I just fell right back into eating meat and not really choosing to go seek out the right support to stay on that pathway. And so that was probably a big reason why I didn't stay vegan at the time. And only later on, once my son was just over a year old, I really decided, okay, you know what, this is it. I'm deciding to go vegan. And I chose my reasons for going vegan would be absolutely for the environment, which shifted pretty quickly into being about the animals. But when I reflect back on that first time I went vegan, I realized that a big part of not sticking with it was a mindset, or a lack of a mindset shift and awareness, and really what I perceived was my truth to stay on that pathway. So it was an important part of the journey, and so I really appreciate it. I have so much compassion for everybody on this journey. I know that it's not easy. It's not quick necessarily. Some people do it overnight. Some people take 10 years, just like I did. But either way, it's your own journey. I think it's just really important to give respect and value to that process. And as long as you're continuously looking at ways to reduce your impact through your food choices and try to change the way we eat for also health reasons. And yeah, I just think it's a really important thing to pursue in your own time and in your own way. And, I guess a little secret that I wanted to share, and, it's a secret I'm really happy to share freely with you, is that every now and then, so if my partner or my son, they decide they don't want their dairy milkshake, for example, I do choose to drink it, so it's not to say that I'm perfectly vegan. I'm still very much vegan. I don't consider myself failing in any way. I choose that not because I know that there's still no impact from having that milkshake, for example, but I choose it because sometimes, I'm human. Sometimes I crave that taste. I still miss the taste of so many non-vegan foods that I used to eat and that were a normal part of my diet. So yeah, there are times when I'll choose to have it, only if it's being wasted, of course. I don't go out and buy a milkshake for myself or or eat a cake. I definitely don't ever eat meat that's being wasted. That's just where I draw the line. It's not to say that eggs and dairy are not just as bad, because there's plenty of impact from those industries as well. But yeah, that's my honest truth. And I wanted to be very real with you guys here, because I think that, if you're going to choose to hate on my journey, or me for that matter, for making this choice and not being a perfect vegan, look, that's okay. I think it doesn't really affect me in the end. What it really does is gives you, if you are choosing to do that, an excuse not to make changes in your own life, because you're seeing somebody else make a mistake, so to speak. So I think what I'm getting at here is, whether you are perfectly vegan, wonderful, or not so perfectly vegan, or on that journey towards being more plant-based, whatever it is, it's your journey, and so important to have compassion and respect throughout this process for everybody making the choice to shift. And so let's talk about why are animal products and their derivatives bad for the environment? Well, there are several reasons. So of course, in order to create that space for the agricultural industry to grow even the plants that feed the animals and the livestock, and to actually nurture and grow the livestock, they need to they need to basically carry out huge amounts of deforestation and planned forest fires in order to create that space. So of course, there's associated biodiversity loss, there's habitat loss. Tons of animals obviously die from this process, and also it creates a lot of space for viruses to grow. Hi, Marie, thanks for joining. So there's that deforestation and forest fire issue. Then with the actual process of rearing the animals, there is billions of tons of CO2 that are emitted from this process, as well as methane. So of course, from burning the trees down, cutting them down, huge amounts of CO2 released into the air, but also cows farting, huge amounts of methane that are actually released. So believe it or not, cows farting is an environmental issue, and those cows exist in those numbers for the purpose of supporting the agricultural industry or the meat industry. So yeah, there's a direct association there with greenhouse gas emissions. Then there is also the human rights issue, which when you have huge amounts of land being taken and land grabbing happening, many Indigenous and traditional communities are kicked out of their own homes. And these practices in the abattoirs as well are quite demoralizing in themselves. So yes, there's the human rights issues against the communities and the traditional communities that live in those areas, but also in the actual abattoirs, it's a very demoralizing and disturbing environment. So oftentimes there is huge amounts is not the right way to put it, but you definitely see human rights issues and human rights abuse happening in the workspaces that the meat industry creates as well. And so huge issues really with the effects on the environment and sustainability, because what sustainability in the environment is about is, of course, the natural capital, but it is also to do with social and human capital. So, there's a direct affront on humanity when we're treating our own people badly for the purpose of feeding each other. So yeah, there's of course issues with human rights. There is also a risk, I think I mentioned earlier, when you've got huge amounts of forests being removed and burnt, and then animals being brought in and put in quite infectious environments, there's actually a huge increase in the level of pandemics occurring, similar to coronavirus. I'm not sure if you know, but about 3/4 of infectious diseases actually come from animals. And that statistic really kind of blew me away because, I mean, it's something that I was quite aware of when you really think about the different infectious diseases. But to hear that is confronting, and obviously a big part of it is to do with the way that we use animals in both our food systems as well as our entertainment systems and transport systems. So we use them in so many different ways and create a lot of very destructive infectious environments. So, we've kind of covered a few different reasons why it's bad for the environment. I think I'll sort of end off with the one thing that was, well, also again, obvious to me, but confronting when I heard it. And when you have to support the meat industry and feed these animals, huge amounts of land is obviously being deforested and used for the animals to be able to feed them. So to grow crops to feed them, usually soya or corn. 1/4 of the world's land is currently being used to grow animal feed to support the meat industry. Now, if you were to actually reduce the demand for meat or the demand for animal products, those plants could currently feed the world and have plenty left over with the current state, with the current population that we have and the current usage of land and the growth that we are producing of animal feed. We could easily transfer that over to being human feed and no longer having to support the animal industry, agricultural industry, if we all went vegan overnight. So it's really fascinating, actually, that we've essentially created a food system that relies on further depletion beyond feeding just the humans, because we have to deplete further resources and land in order to support the industry that we've created. So the impacts are just they kind of spiral really quickly when you look at it holistically. So I wanted to share my screen. I did actually have a graphic that I wanted to share with all of you. And apologies, I didn't share this a little bit earlier while I was talking about the statistics, but hopefully you can see that now. I believe it's popped up. So yeah, it's really confronting if you can see the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Sorry, I was looking to my left, possibly your right, because that's where my second screen is. But you can see that, so beef and lamb are the two most climate destructive meats in the industry. And so usually when people start to shift towards a climatarian diet, they start to take out beef and lamb. And then following on, they look at probably chicken and pork. But countries like Australia, the UK need to eat probably about 70% less meat and dairy by 2030 if we're wanting to prevent the climate from breaking down, or our world, really, our planetary system from breaking down. So it's huge. And look, there's direct climate effects, but the great part of all of this is as you start to shift towards a more plant-based diet, you actually start to improve your health hugely. The World Health Organization for a while did say that, and they've always sort of plugged in that eating more plant-based foods is really good for your health. But they did officially state that having a vegan diet is the most of whole foods vegan diet, that is the most healthy diet. And it's what they were calling the planetary health diet, because it's both healthy for the planet as well as human beings. Recently, there were some shifts in their statement and they did retract that a little bit. And I think that was to do with political interference. So there's a bit of contention around what the World Health Organization said. But it is still what they stick by, in the sense that they still say moving towards more plant-based food, whole food plant-based foods, is the healthiest diet you can have. So what that means is eating less processed foods and single origin products. So beans, legumes, nuts, grains, vegetables, fruits, all of that great stuff. So it's really important things to start considering if you are shifting towards a plant-based diet. And you know what, to end off, I don't want to end off in some really negative way, because yes, there are those obvious environmental impacts and health impacts as well from not eating as much plant-based foods. But let's help you guys get on, we'll really progress your journey and all get on track if you're not considering a plant-based diet up until now. So I have some really cool tips. So one is find a vegan junk food that you love. When I first started eating vegan properly, I didn't really eat much vegan junk food. I wasn't really craving it, but I did start to crave it later on. And actually, if I was to pick one that was my absolute favorite, it would probably be the Great Pretender burger. That's at Nando's. It's really delicious. It's kind of like a grilled chicken burger. Really great substitute. I love it. The second tip I have for you is don't focus on taking away foods from your diet. Look at how you might substitute foods. So if you really love spaghetti bolognese, for example, I know that you can make a really mean spaghetti bolognese, and you can even make spaghetti meatballs. Spaghetti bolognese meatballs. Using mushrooms and lentils. So try and look at how you can substitute a dish that you would normally eat with meat in it for a vegan option or a plant-based option. The third one is learn about learn about vegan lifestyles. So following plant-based families or vegan families or chefs that cook vegan food, really great way to learn about what you can cook and what you can eat and what's nutritious. It's going to be really different for each person. The truth is that there are obviously the typical foods that are not healthy for most people, but based on your body mass index or your sex or your age, there are going to be different foods that are going to be, even your genetic tree, by the way, there's going to be foods that are going to be most beneficial to you. So it's really important to talk to your nutritionist or your doctor, or if you can find one, a plant-based doctor who can help you understand what's right for your body, or even just trial and error. That's kind of how I got to where I am. And I'm going to share some resources here about some vegan chefs that I follow, and just a couple of vegan chefs that I follow, and one particular website that I found that has a few resources that you can tap into. So the fourth tip, don't go into eating vegetables or when I say don't go into eating vegetables, don't go into eating plant-based foods that are super healthy straight away if you're not used to that already. Obviously, a whole foods plant-based diet is the most healthy diet, but let's look at sort of shifting towards, as I said, those substituted type meals that are super flavorful. So a really important thing, and the reality of eating plant-based, is there's less fats in your diet. There's no cholesterol if you do it properly. And so you really need to make up for the taste that's lacking from the fats that come from meat and animal-derived products. So make sure that your food is super flavorful and put extra herbs and spices in there to get it to that right spot. Probably avoid the salt, but definitely extra herbs and spices. And then the fifth tip is understanding your body and your deficiencies. Likely that prior to going plant-based or eating more plant-based, you're going to have deficiencies that exist. It's pretty typical for most people, because most people are not aware of what their body truly needs. So be aware of that, and then ensure that, as you're shifting your diet, that you're making up for the deficiencies that you are experiencing and eating properly in order to supplement those deficiencies. So what am I up to? I think I'm up to tip number 6. Learn to read the labels. It's all well and good to eat vegan meats and vegan cheeses probably at the start when you're really struggling with the shift, but also understand that there's a lot more unnatural materials going into producing those products. So definitely start to shift quickly towards more natural, organic, whole foods that have, if there were to be pastes and mixes and sauces, look for ones that have 5 ingredients or less. It's always a really good tip in terms of finding more natural, healthy foods that actually have low impact on the environment as well. And final tip is that, I think I've said this a few times throughout this already, is love yourself throughout this process and know that everybody is going through their own journey in terms of shifting their diet and their lifestyle. So really important to be loving and compassionate to yourself. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so you can just see me. And I just wanted to end there, is have compassion for yourself through this process, and learn as much as you possibly can about other people who are doing the same thing in this space. And I hope that you find these resources that I am sharing with you helpful. I've just realized Marie, who is on the live, has just told me about Veggie, or reminded me about Veggie chocolate. If you haven't tried that already, it is probably one of the most delicious vegan chocolates I've tasted. Definitely close to fooling you in terms of being a dairy chocolate. It's really good. So Veggie, it's a weird name for a chocolate. It's VEGO, and I believe it's somewhere from Northern Europe. I'm not sure where. But yeah, definitely a good one to try. Good tip, Marie. So I didn't have any questions posted to me about this, so I don't have any questions to answer from the public, but that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to answer them post this episode. So please feel free to shoot me any questions if you're curious about anything. I'd love to talk to you about this. This is, as I said, one of my favorite topics and a really important place in my heart. It's the way I eat my food. So really important to me. We all love our food. So I hope that this has inspired you to think about eating more plant-based and shifting your diet to a more climate-friendly diet, and understanding the impacts on the environment through our food choices. And please tell me if you do start to think about it more, or you start to make some shifts yourself in your lifestyle. I'd love to hear about your success, and share it around, share the love. Hope you all have an amazing evening, day, morning, wherever you are. And thank you so much for joining me today, joining me live. Take care.